I was just playing to sort of test it out. Yeah, so you can you see it's like my monitor whether there's latency. She hasn't texted me, so I guess it might be okay. Anyway, uh, well, I don't need to introduce myself because everybody I see everybody's face here and I know everybody. So I'm Victor Rendon, as you well know, and but I'm here today to talk about how to develop timbales solos because I started playing timbales relatively late in life. I went to college and I was playing drums and I was playing classical percussion and jazz drums, this and that. And I started to get into timbales seriously when I was about 23 or 24, which is actually pretty late in life. So I had to sort of learn this instrument at almost like a second hand type of instrument. So how did I develop solos? How did I get the vocabulary? But before I get into that, I'm going to review the sounds that you can get from the timbales, because sometimes by hitting certain spots of the timbal, you can get a billion things out of it. So the first thing is the open tone. If I hit the center of the drum, people think that the center of the drum is the most resonant, but it really isn't. If I hit in between the middle and the edge, I actually get a bigger sound. I learned that from playing timpani. You don't play timpani in the middle. You always play it towards the middle, between the middle and the edge of the drum. You can hear it's a subtle difference. And if I take away the stick, it lets the sound come out. So those are the open tones. And on open tones, I can also hit it in different parts. As I said, like 1/4 in, I can hit the edge. If I do this, see, you hear a different sound for every part of the drum. So if I move my sticks around, I can actually get different sounds out of one open tone. The next sound is the muffled tone. If I put my hand, like my left hand on the drum, hit the drum, I get a muff. I can do this. So I have open tone, muff tones. I can also muff with the stick. Open tone, muff. The next thing is the rim shot. Now this one gets distorted and zoomed, so hopefully it'll work. What I'm doing is I'm hitting from the tip to about maybe a couple of inches in. When I hit the rim, the tip of the stick comes off the head. So I'm doing this. So it's coming off that, but I'm not letting go of the rim though. That's what gives it that rim shot. I can also do this like in timpani. It's a different sound. Like this. And if I take away the arm, that lets the sound resonate and go out into the air like in timpani. Right now I was demonstrating the shoulder. Almost make the drum talk. So those are the sounds. Open tones. Muffs. Muffs with the stick. Rim shot. And of course, the other stuff on top of the timbal. Okay, getting to the solos. Of course, the best thing to do is to just listen to the masters. If you grew up in the culture and you grew up listening to, all those masters of the past, it's going to be in you somehow. What I did for myself, I started to listening to the timbales of the day, which was the 70s, the 80s, and before. So there's many timbale players that play or played in what I call a típico style or open style. What I mean by that is that they don't play anything fancy like nothing like that. It's all very typical, very open, no rolls. Like old timers now say, it's all rolls and no butter, because some people play a lot. But this is the butter. One. that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the language that sometimes is missing. So I'm gonna play some transcriptions, a couple of transcriptions of guys that I studied. There was one Cuban guy named Chihuahua Martinez, and there's this CD called Descarga Cubana, and the tune is called Oye Lo Pollo. So I'm gonna play like the first few bars, and I'm gonna play it slow, and it's gonna be very typical with thin sticks, also to keep the latency down. And this is Oye Lo Pollo, típico. Okay, that's a typical, very open, no roast. Now I'm gonna take those ideas and I'm going to improvise to make it into me. But I'm gonna keep away from technical stuff. I'm just gonna keep it so to speak open. Okay, so that's Chihuahua. You can hear him on many records with Cachao, this and that, playing danzones and stuff like that. The next guy, there are many, like Monchito Munoz, Chiqui Perez, I could go on. The next guy that made a big impression on me with that típico style was none other than Manny Oquendo. And he recorded a tune called Llora Timbero, which I believe are piano players here, and he recorded that with I don't want to embarrass you, Joe. But there's a tune called Llora Timbero. This comes from a book, by the way, in 1989. I published this before computers. It's handwritten, and it took me about 7 or 8 years to transcribe all these solos. So this is Manny Oquendo, and Manny Oquendo played much heavier than Chihuahua, but I'm still going to play it light because of the latency. And this is Llora Timbero. I'm going to play it slower. Let's see, I'm going to take it at 1/8. And notice again that Manny, for the most part, did not play any roles. It was all typical, you know, but it had a lot of feeling. I didn't play the whole thing. I'm going to do it again, a little faster. This is Llora Timbero, Manny Oquendo. Okay? Now I'm gonna take Chihuahua and Manny and make it into Victor Rendon, hopefully. Típico. Okay, so when I want to play típico, that's what I think about. I think about that older generation, and I keep away from anything that's kind of technical, where there's roles, fast stuff. I just try and talk the language. You know. So that's one style. The other style that that I want to talk about is then came Tito Puente, and Tito Puente was a trained, more of a trained technician, having studied piano, this and that, and he had the typical language, but he also had a style that came from the danzón, which is the bacateo. So he used to do this a lot, which comes from the danzón. So it's called bacateo. Sometimes he would do it this way. So now I'm gonna play in that style. This is the Puente style. So that's the style. I mean, that's one of the trademarks of Puente. Now, where did he get that? I already said that he got it from Danzón, but there's a book that was published around in the 40s or so, and it's the stick control book. If you look at the stick control book, I don't have it handy. Anyway, it's got a lot of those stickings. Like it's got the rock. It's got the here it is. Stick control book. So if I take, let's say, the first page 5, which I teach my students while they stick with this book, because I ram it into their head. I'll just run it down. I'm going to do the first 12 exercises with the click. And I'm going to make it into a Puente style. Okay, so that's where you can get some of those stickers. Oh, and also forgot to mention that Pablito Rosario, many years ago, back in 1981 or so, he showed me that bacateo style, and his thing was to play bell patterns with his right hand. So, for instance, he would go. Just mix it up. So that's what I call the puente style. Now, there's one guy that I skipped, and this is during the 50s. After the típico style, or during the típico style, another Cuban came around. He was a drummer, and he started playing a little bit more than the típico. And his name was Guillermo Barreto. There's a famous recording called Descargas Cubanas in Miniature Descarga, something like that. And this tune is called Descarga Cubana. And I'm going to do just a little bit, because you're going to hear that he played típico, but he added a few more notes to give it a bit, like almost like a jazzy feeling. I'm going to play it slow, and I'm just going to do a few bars. I feel good, so I'm going to play it a little faster. So that's Guillermo Barreto. You can see he added some little phrases that sort of, in my opinion, jazzed it up a little bit. And then Puente was already in the scene by then. He had more like a Gene Krupa type of style. In the 80s, actually, even in the 70s, 60s, it started getting a little bit more technical, and guys like Puente, of course, Oreste Vilato, Mike Collazo, they would play triplets. And I have a section, actually before, let's see, I think I got ahead of myself. No, it's okay, I'm good. On the triplets page, on this book, it's called The Art of Playing Timbales by yours truly. And then on page 82, I have some of those written out. And then we do stuff like this. Just playing triplets. But then they would jazz it up by playing axes in different parts of the triplet. And this, by the way, came, if you work out of this book, the Terry book in the back, he's got those type of things right now. So you can actually expand your vocabulary by going through the read in the triplet section of the book. So anyway, it would be triplets. Like I'll start with the downbeats. That was a favorite, by the way. Fast. I'll do it slow. So now I'm going to play page 82, and I'm going to play triplets in that style. And I'm going to do slow. Might make sense faster. I'll play on one drum. So that's another technique that the drummers, mostly, in my opinion, like the 60s, the 70s, Jimmy Sabater, Tito Puente, Orestes, did a lot of that, and people are still doing it. So those are the triplets. Now, the thing that I want to get is how do you teach people how to solo? In my younger day, people would ask me, "Well, can you teach me how to solo?" And I would be like, "Nah, that comes later. We're not doing that." But I think that learning how to play solos on any instrument is like learning how to speak a language, learning how to walk. Like a baby, when he gets up and takes a step and falls down, the parent's not going to say, "Hey, come on, what's the matter with you? Go back and read the book and get it right." They don't do that. Instead, they encourage you. So I try and do that, no matter how basic it might be. I give them information. But in addition to listening to a lot of music and getting that vocabulary into your system, I came out with some excerpts from the solos again, and actually I have it over here, and I made them into one-bar phrases, especially for beginners that have no idea in their mind how to start to improvise. At least I'm giving them coordination with their hands. I'm giving them a little bit of reading, and I'm giving them vocabulary that they can use on the gig. So I have these exercises. This is page 80 from The Art of Playing Timbales. And what I have them do at a cha-cha tempo, they play 4 bars, and then they play the 1-bar phrase 4 times. In this case, I have Guillermo Barreto on the very first one. That's the first one. The second one is this one. Pa, 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 pa. That could be anybody. This one that I use a lot. That's Guillermo Barreto. This one. That could be anybody. I think a little Ray Romero on Indescriptible for that one. This one. I think about Orestes on that one. This one. That could be Orestes or anybody. This one for me is Manny Oquendo. 1, 2, 3, 4. from Puente. This could be anybody. This could be anybody, but I think of Orestes. This could be anybody, but again, I think Orestes, he did all those funky licks. This could be anybody. This one is a repeat with different sounds. This is Mary, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Changuito. This is Giovanni on the congas, which I transferred to Timbales. Okay, now I'm going to play it to a click. And I'm going to play it at one, not too fast, 1/8. Okay, so basically they start out slow here because most people cannot take them that fast, but as they get better, we pump it up and it can go up to, over 200 or so. So that's my way of teaching some improv on the timbal. The other thing that I started to do lately, and not only in my teaching but for myself, is applying rudiments to my improvisation. And you can take, like, let's say the 5-stroke roll, the 6-stroke roll, the 7, the 9, the 10, the 11, the 13, the 15, the 200, I'm gonna just throw in, I'm gonna do nothing but those rudiments. So if you learn your rudiments, you can just take all those rudiments and just juggle them around, throw them, slap them around, and you can do a whole solo just on that. The next family of rudiments is the paradiddles. Puente did a lot of this. The paradiddle, for those that not know, is the double, the triple paradiddle. Paradiddle diddle. Okay, so if we'll see what happens. I'm just going to do nothing but paradiddles this time. That was an inverted paradiddle. But do it fast, you get a nice little lick there. So that's the paradiddle family. The next family would be the flamps. I don't use a lot of flamps, but I guess I do. But not the rudiments like the flam tap, flam accent, Swiss Army triplet. I was trying to incorporate those. That's the fan family. The next family of rudiments is, or the diddle, so the drag, the single drag, the double drag, the drag paradiddle, the double drag paradiddle. And those are a lot of fun. Okay. Let me explain them. The drag is this. It's a drag. It used to be called the rough. That's called a drag. And there's a drag tap. It used to be called the single drag. Now it's called the drag tap. The double drag tap. Drag paradiddle. The double drag paradiddle. This is a new one. I don't know the name. When I was a kid, we only had 26 rudiments. Now there are 40. So Sometimes I forget the names. So there's the pata fla fla, which I don't remember either. So anyway, these are the drag rhythms at 200. And the last family is actually part of the drag family. It's called the rhythmic cues. It's a rhythmic cue, double rhythmic cue, and the triple, double, triple. So now I'm going to do rhythmic cues. Okay, now I'm going to take all the rudiments and I'm going to just play whatever comes to my mind. Okay, so that's the incorporation of rudiments into your solos. Another thing that I'm starting to do is I'm starting to get ideas from books, from different sources, because speaking for myself, when I was a kid, I would study my classical percussion. That would be like in a box. Then I would go to jazz, and it had nothing to do with the classical. Then I went to the Latino, and all of that. They were like in different pockets, but I didn't tie, the dots. I separated everything. So I've been taking the rudimental ideas. There's a great book, and I got this idea from Steve Smith, a great jazz drummer. He's doing this, or he goes through this book, and he plays the solos, and then he applies it to the drum set. And I'm doing it on the drum set and the thing, but for instance, if I take the first piece, it's called Rolling in Rhythm. I'll just play a little bit, because it sounds very rudimental. But I'll just play the little bit so you can know where it's coming from. Now play it so 1, 2, 3, 4. Very march band like, right? But if I look at the first bar, and I wish I had meant to do a PDF and share it on the screen, but I forgot to do it. It's a 50-stroke roll. So if I take the first 2 bars, it's a 50. If I take the second line, the first 2 bars, it's a 7 and a 6. if I do that, and so on. If I take the ending or the diddles that I already did, do that. And so on. So I'm taking ideas from classical, classical books that I did when I was a kid. There's another one. This is Forges in Rhythm by Anthony Cerrone. He's from the San Francisco Symphony, and I went through this book. And the very first page, after about 30 years, 40 years, I look at the book, and lo and behold, I see a lick that I heard on records over the years. And I'll play it classically first. That's classical, right? In the symphony, so forth. But if I take that lick and make it nasty, so there you go. I took something from a book that has nothing to do with Latino, but in many ways it does because the rhythms are there. So it's nothing but a tap and a flat. If I put my left hand over here, if I reverse it, take it to right, left, so there you see, I'm taking ideas from books. The good old Saul Goodman book. I think most people know that the timpani, or like the granddaddy of the timbales, right? It came to Cuba, then it was made smaller into the timbales criollos, and eventually it became what we have here. And you can take ideas here. I'm not going to play anything in particular here, but it does have like cross-sticking patterns. Like if I have, let's say, it's got a lot of that kind of stuff in classical music. But he also has like cross-sticking. Somebody asked me about that a long time ago. Can you teach me cross-sticking? I was like, no. You gotta learn how to play first. But it's in the Saul Goodman book, and it's part of the, they teach it from the beginning, because like in I think it's the Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, you have like very fast. I'll do it very slow. So that type of training can cross to, and I've seen people, you can cross over to timbal. I've seen Changuito do stuff like that. Let's see if I can do it. Let's see. I don't use it. So that's something, one of the options out there. And to wrap it up, I spoke about playing típico, going back to the 40s, 50s, and then other drummers like Puente, actually back in the 40s already. Guillermo Barreto, they started incorporating more technical stuff. Going into the 70s, Orestes also started, incorporating a lot of the stuff that really comes, from the stick control and the Ted Reed. I don't know if he did that. I doubt it, but that the ideas are there. And then people like Chanquito in the 80s started incorporating more more rudiments and started getting more technical, and then now it's developed into what it is now. So I hear a lot of that stuff in the younger players today. A lot of fast stuff, but it's all hand technique. You know, so if you practice your strokes every day and your stick control, you can develop. You want to play that way. And but my thing is, I try. Speaking for myself, I try to be a little different. I don't want to show a display of technique. I work with my technique every day, but I don't want to show a display of just hand technique. My idea is to tell a story. The worst thing is that you run into somebody in the street and he goes like, whoa, blah, 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 and then and then I went to the street and now I went to the movies. You know, he talks and never takes a moment to say, "Oh, how are you? Hello, I had a good day." In other words, have a conversation with yourself. You know, because you're not talking with somebody else when you're playing. But that's my concept of solely to give space, say hello, interact, and say goodbye. And also practicing at different tempos. The worst thing you can do is practice one tempo, and then you go to the gig and you have to play a solo here, and you have no idea what to do. My thing is playing like at 160. That's like my gray area. So there's where I'd be working at. You know, it's hard to play in play a good solo in that area because if you play too many eighth notes, it sounds boring. If you play 16s or 30 seconds, it's too fast. So you have to find licks or phrases that will sound good at those different tempos. So to finish off, I want to thank Daniel Galant. I want to thank Jason Quinones, Chris, who set this up for me, and I'm gonna just play for a minute. I have clicks here, and they start at 120. And I'm gonna play just for a few seconds. I have it at I have like 120 all the way up to about 240 or so for 2 minutes each. That way, if I want to practice my solos, I'll practice solos at all those different tempos. I have them in groups of 10, like 120, 130, 140, and then I have subdivisions 120, 125. These are the 10s. So I'm just going to play like a few seconds of each, so you can see what I do. 190. 200. 210. 220. 230. 240. 240. So you get the idea where I'm practicing my expression at different tempos. That way I don't get into a rut. To finish off, I just want to recommend a few books. This is probably the most famous of all. It's called Latin American Rhythm Instruments by Humberto Morales and Henry Adler. I believe this was published in the 1940s. This is great because it's got a lot of the older terminology, like slow mambo, I don't know what that means, double mambo. There's fast mambo, cha-cha-cha, and some rhythms that are not used that much anymore, but still active, like bayon, the rumba, which was the commercialized, a song here in the United States, guaracha, montuno, bolero, merengue, Brazilian march, and so on. So this is a good book to check out if you're serious about the timbales. Another one that came out in 1949 was Drumming the Latin American Way by Isabelo Ernesto Marrero. He used to play with the Desi Arnaz and occasionally with Machito. And the story goes is that he was a good reader, so he was hired by the Machito orchestra whenever they needed a reader. So this is good because it covers some of the older styles of timbal playing, and you can see how the instrument has evolved. If you want to know more about Tito Puente's style, this is the book to get. It's called Tito Puente's Drumming with the Mambo King by Tito Puente and Gene Payne. And this is great because it's got a lot of his bell patterns. Like he used to have a specific bell pattern for several tunes. Like this bell pattern goes with that tune, that type of thing, which, not too many people think about that nowadays. So, and also it's got some transcriptions. So if you want to get into Tito Puente style, this is the book. This is definitely the book. If you want to study Changuito and see what he did back in the 80s with Ban Ban, this is the book. It's ironic because back in the 80s, Cuba was pretty much close to us, and I used to get like bootleg videos, at Boys Harbor where I used to teach. Here's a copy of Changuito. Don't show it to anybody, but secret, So I transcribed a lot of this stuff before he even came to the United States and did a video, and eventually this book got published. But you can see that two-handed thing that he does with the mount, the right hand and the left hand, the two bell pattern for guaracha, so on. The merengue, the songos that he did. So if you want to study Changuito, this is the book. And of course, where's my book? And this is The Art of Playing Timbales. I think of this book as more like a New York style, more in general New York style playing here. What happened is I came to New York City in 1980, and I was taking lessons from everybody and playing almost every night, and I was writing down everything. So a a lot of these things came from, you know, my mentors like Johnny Amanda, Louis Alzo, Frankie Malaver, people like that. So, and it has interviews and it has a couple of transcriptions. It's got the Menio Kendo solo, Yola Timbero, Corta el Bonche, with Tito Puente playing the Bacateo. It's got solo phrases which you can study and play along. So this is the art of playing timbales. So there are other books, but these are the main ones that I think are the ones to get. And people ask me, which one should I get? If you're serious about the instrument, get them all. I mean, why cut yourself short? Get them all. What are you talking about? And buy the book. Don't make a copy. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joe. I think I saw Chembo. And I hope you got something out of this. I think it's going to go on for a while. Chembo was here last week. I'm here today. Willie Martinez, I think, will be here next week or pretty soon, I know. So, and it might go on. So I'll be thinking of other things to present to you over the next couple of months until this pandemic. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you. I'll see you later.